Today we're going looking for the real secret to modern productivity, but not where you'd think.
Right. We're not talking about the latest app or, some new time management hack.
No, we are going much, much deeper. We're looking at the origin stories, the philosophies behind the systems that basically run our working lives, the systems that stop us from doing all the stupid stuff.
And that phrase, stupid stuff, that is so key. If you work at a computer, you know exactly what we mean. You feel productive, sure, but there's this constant low-level drain on your energy.
The time you waste hunting for a file you know you saved somewhere.
Or trying to figure out what was decided in an email chain from 6 weeks ago.
Oh, the worst. Or losing a whole morning just going back and forth, trying to schedule one 30-minute meeting.
It's what we call a friction tax. And we estimate it steals hours, sometimes even full days, from your work week without you even realizing it.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating about the material we've pulled for today is that these huge world-changing companies, we're talking Dropbox, Slack, Calendly, they weren't born out of some grand plan to change the world.
Not at all.
They were born because a founder was personally deeply annoyed by that friction tax in their own life and just said, no more.
I am going to fix this permanently. Our mission today is to pull out the principles behind these systems. We're looking for the common thread in the stories of people like Drew Houston, Stuart Butterfield, Eric Ries.
Tope Awatona, Jack Dorsey.
Right. And for you listening, this is immediately relevant because these systems, they're designed for how humans actually work.
Yeah.
Which is, imperfectly. They assume you're human, not some kind of superhuman.
That's the big idea right there. The greatest productivity hack of all is just admitting that your mind is, well, it's fragile, it gets distracted, it's terrible at remembering little details.
So the most powerful thing you can do is move that burden.
Yeah.
Move the job of remembering, of coordinating, of finding stuff from your overworked brain onto reliable software.
We're going to hit 4 big areas of friction today. First, just finding your files. Then finding the context around those files. After that, coordination and focus. And finally, learning and measurement.
It's time to stop trying to be the hero who remembers everything.
And start building the infrastructure that remembers for you.
Hmm.
Okay, let's dive in. Part 1. We're starting with what has to be the most universal frustration point in all of modern work.
The missing file.
The missing file. And to talk about that, we have to start with the legend of Drew Houston and the Chinatown bus. I mean, the story is almost like the creation myth for the cloud.
It really is. So picture this. It's the mid-2000s. Drew Houston is on a bus from Boston to New York, and he has what should be the perfect setup for deep work.
4 hours, uninterrupted, a quiet seat, a big deadline. That's gold for an entrepreneur.
It's everything you could ask for. So he opens his laptop, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That feeling, that cold drop in your stomach.
He realizes the files aren't on the laptop.
Yeah.
All the code, all the documents he needs, they're on a thumb drive.
A tiny little piece of plastic.
A tiny piece of plastic that he left on his desk back in his apartment in Boston. And the key here is that this wasn't a hard drive crash. That's a disaster, but it's an act of God,
Right. You can understand that.
This was a failure of his system, a system that relied on him physically carrying the right data to the right place at the right time.
And we have all felt that exact same frustration. That moment you realize the final version of the presentation is on your work computer and you're at home. It's self-inflicted pain.
It is. And Houston's big insight on that bus, what the sources really highlight, was that his entire workflow carrying thumb drives, emailing files to himself, saving drafts to the desktop, it was all built on a crazy assumption.
Which was?
The assumption of perfect human memory and perfect human coordination. Every single time.
Which is just, it's an insane expectation to have of yourself or anyone else.
It's totally insane. And that's what makes it preventable retrieval friction. He realized, sitting there, that he was blocked by his own system because that system required him to be a perfect robot. And when that chain of command inevitably broke.
The work just stopped, dead in its tracks.
Right. And that feeling of frustration, that powerful thought of, I never ever want to have this problem again, that's what made him open up his code editor right there on the bus and start writing the very first lines of what would become Dropbox.
What's so interesting to me is that the core technology, file syncing, it wasn't brand new.
No, not at all.
The breakthrough wasn't the tech, it was the design philosophy. It was about aggressively, ruthlessly removing the human from the coordination process.
And that brings us to the core problem that Dropbox solved, the default habit of almost every busy professional. It's a concept we call scatter storage.
I think I'm guilty of this. Tell me more about scatter storage.
Oh, we're all guilty of it. Scatter storage is the anti-system. It's when your important documents live, well, everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Okay, give me some examples.
A critical PDF is buried in an email thread from last Tuesday. An important memo is saved to your desktop just for a minute, and then it lives there for 6 months.
The classic report final v7 final.ddo-dex.
Exactly. That file lives on a shared drive somewhere, but nobody's quite sure if it's the real final version. Scatter storage is this vague, optimistic belief that your brain or some magical search tool will just piece it all together later.
It's a system that runs on tolerance. You tolerate it because it mostly works.
Right. Until it breaks down at the worst possible moment, like right before a huge client meeting.
And that's when you feel the hidden cost. We think productivity is about typing faster or working harder, but it's not. It's about removing this preventable friction.
Think about it. In knowledge work, the actual act of creating, the typing, the thinking, that's often the smaller part of the day. The bigger silent tax is the time you spend just finding the stuff you need to start the work.
The 5 minutes clicking through folders, checking your sent mail, trying 3 different search terms.
All of that is you paying the friction tax. A good system has to make that impossible. It has to move the file status from, maybe it's here, to, of course it's here, it's always here.
So, based on what Houston built, let's drill down. What are the 3 non-negotiable traits of a modern anti-friction file system?
Okay, number 1, and this is the absolute foundation, one home, a single source of truth.
What does that mean in practice?
It means every important document, every asset, every single spreadsheet lives in one and only one canonical place, a central cloud drive, the work hub. If a document only exists as an email attachment, it's basically homeless. It's untraceable.
So the rule is you get an important attachment, the very first thing you do is save it to the central hub.
Immediately, you have to be strict. Email is for the conversation about the work. The cloud drive is for the work itself. The moment you have 2 sources of truth, you've created version chaos.
Okay, so one home. What's number 2?
Number 2 is ubiquity. The work has to be available on every single device you could possibly use. Your phone, your tablet, your home laptop, your work desktop.
No more asking which machine is that on.
If you have to ask that question, even for a split second, you've already lost. The system should just be there, everywhere, all the time.
And the third one, which I think causes the most pain in teams.
Oh, for sure. Version sanity. Everyone on the team needs to know, without a shadow of a doubt, what is the current version. The system has to make it almost physically impossible to work on an old, outdated, dangerous copy.
And this is where the big behavioral shift happens, right? The move away from attachment.
This is the whole ball game.
Yeah.
The sources argue that sending a file as an attachment is a form of technical debt.
Explain that. What do you mean technical debt?
Well, when you attach a document to an email and hit send, you've created a brand new, orphaned copy of that file. It immediately starts to drift out of sync with your original.
And if you send it to 5 people?
Now you have 6 different versions floating around, and if you spot a typo a minute later, you have to rely on human beings, yourself, and 5 other people, to remember to delete the old one and use the new one.
Which is a recipe for disaster.
It's a complete nightmare at any kind of scale. A link, on the other hand, is just a pointer. It always points to one home, the single source of truth.
So if I share a link with you, and then I go update the document.
The next time you click that same link, you see my update, the old version is just gone. It's a systemic fix for a human memory problem. It's brilliant.
It changes everything. So, okay, let's get really practical. What are the tactics someone listening can use right now to build this one home system for themselves? You mentioned something called the Inbox H Projects flow.
Yes. This is a daily discipline. We're all bombarded with new information all day. Emails, downloads, notes. Don't let that stuff pile up in random places.
The scatter storage.
Right. Instead, create one single folder called Inbox. Everything new and unprocessed goes there. Then, just once a day, maybe first thing in the morning or the end of the day, you spend 10 minutes processing it.
And what does processing mean?
It means renaming the file properly and moving it to its permanent home in the right projects folder. It's like doing the dishes. If you do it every day, it takes 5 minutes. If you wait a week, it's a huge, overwhelming mess.
Okay, and that brings up renaming. The sources had some very specific advice here. Name files so a teammate inheriting it tomorrow would understand.
This is such a simple but powerful mind shift. Stop naming files for yourself right now. You already have the context. Name it for your colleague who has 0 context, or for yourself 3 years from now when you've forgotten everything.
So no more finaldeckjohn.pptx.
Never again. Use a structure. something consistent, like YYYMM Client Project Deliverable Owner.
So something like 2024-05 ACME launch Q3 marketing strategy Sarah.pptx.
Exactly. Just by reading the file name, I know the who, the what, and the when. It creates a predictable map of your work. If you build these habits, one home, links over attachments, and clear names, you barely even need the search bar anymore.
You're not searching in desperation, you're navigating with confidence.
And if it takes you more than, say, 10 seconds to find any file you need, your system is broken. It's actively robbing you of your time.
So we solved the file problem. We stopped losing our stuff. But you raised a really crucial point as we were prepping for this. Finding the file is only half the problem.
Right.
You find the spreadsheet, but you can't find the conversation that explains why the numbers in the spreadsheet are the way they are. You've lost the context.
And that's our next deep dive. How to turn communication, which is usually a liability that disappears, into a searchable permanent asset for your entire team.
Okay, so this leap from retrieval friction to context friction, the story of Slack is the perfect case study.
Right. So we're in Vancouver and San Francisco. It's around 2012. And Stuart Butterfield and his team are working on a video game.
A very ambitious, beautiful online game called Glitch, and they'd spent years on it.
And the really important detail is that Glitch failed. Commercially, it just didn't work. It didn't find its audience. That had to be a gut punch for the team.
Oh, a brutal, soul-crushing failure. But sometimes that's where the best ideas come from. In the middle of this postmortem, trying to figure out what went wrong, they had a realization.
What was that? While the game, the external product, was dying, their internal communication tool was amazing.
The tool they built just for themselves.
Exactly, out of necessity. It was this custom chat system they'd built on top of an old protocol called IRC. And it was this incredible, searchable, living archive of every decision, every bug fix, every conversation they'd had while building the game.
So they realized the thing they built to make the failed product was actually the real product.
Yes. And the most important decision they made is right there in the name they chose. Slack.
Yeah.
It's not just a word. It's an acronym.
I did not know that. What does it stand for?
Searchable log of all conversation and knowledge.
Wow.
That's the entire philosophy, the whole mission statement baked right into the name.
Yeah.
They weren't just selling chat. They were selling a collective, searchable memory for companies.
That is the turning point for modern teamwork right there. Slack didn't take over the world because of emojis or fun chat bubbles.
No.
It won because it went to war against the single biggest hidden problem in business, knowledge that's trapped in private places.
Think about email. What's the fundamental problem with email for teamwork?
Well, it's great for sending a message from me to you.
Incredibly easy to send, but it's fundamentally designed to be private. So a key decision about a project or some important client feedback, it gets buried 3 replies deep in an email thread between 2 people.
And a month later, when a new person joins the team or a manager needs to understand why that decision was made, they can't find it.
They have no idea it even happened, so what do? They either have to ask someone to forward them this messy, confusing chain, or worse.
They just relitigate the entire decision from scratch because the original reasoning is lost.
Exactly. By default, the organization is opaque. Knowledge is hidden away in these little private inboxes, and that opacity is incredibly expensive. The sources are really clear on this. One of the most costly things any company does is repeat work, solving problems that were already solved.
So this whole shift is about changing your mindset. An internal conversation isn't just chatter that disappears, it's an asset, a permanent searchable asset.
That's it. And to really see this principle taken to its logical extreme, you have to look at Matt Mullenweg and Automattic.
The parent company of WordPress.com. Famously remote, right?
One of the biggest and most successful fully distributed companies in the world. And they took this idea of a searchable log and pushed it even further. They built their entire internal culture around a form of long-form internal blogging.
So instead of a quick chat message, the default is more like a public post.
Yes. Mullenweg's model basically says, we're going to trade the comfort and speed of a private message for the long-term value of public written work. The default is a blog post that anyone can read and comment on, not a private email thread.
That's a huge cultural choice to make.
It's a massive choice.
Yeah.
The core philosophy is visibility over private comfort. In a distributed company, your work has to be legible. It has to be understandable to someone in a different department and a completely different time zone who might read it 6 months from now.
Their motto is, communication is oxygen.
It is. And that means you have to think like an editor. Information doesn't just get dumped out there. It has to be structured and tagged so that the people who need it now can find it. and the people who need it later can discover it.
Okay, but that raises a really important question. If you make everything public, don't you just trade email overload for channel notification overload? How do you manage all that noise?
That is the critical question. And the answer isn't less communication. It's better structure and filtration.
What do you mean?
A chaotic group chat is just noise. But a well-indexed library has just as much information. But you can find what you need. Automatic System encourages things like using tags, using standardized headings in posts. It forces the writer to think about the reader.
So the act of writing it down in a structured way is a bit of a tax on the writer.
That pays back massive dividends in clarity and searchability for everyone else, forever.
Okay, so this idea of legibility is key. How can someone listening apply this right now using whatever tool they have, whether it's Slack or Microsoft Teams or something else?
It starts with building a few key habits. The first one is what we call decisions habit.
This sounds critical for cutting through the noise.
It's non-negotiable. Every time a meaningful decision is made, even a small one, someone is responsible for writing a quick, standardized note about it in a public channel.
And we're not talking about some huge formal document.
No, just 3 simple things. What did we decide? Why did we decide it? And who is the owner responsible for making it happen? And the date, of course.
That simple act moves the decision from someone's brain into the permanent, searchable company archive.
And that archive needs to be public, which leads to the next tactic. Default to public channels for all internal work.
This one is hard for people. Direct messages feel so much faster.
They feel faster in the moment, but they create huge downstream costs in lost context. Project updates, resource discussions, questions about work. That all belongs in the open, where the next person to join the project can read the history and get up to speed without bothering anyone.
So DMs are really just for personal stuff. Hey, you want to grab lunch? Or truly sensitive topics.
Exactly. Everything else should be searchable. And to make searching easier, the third tactic is to pin the one true link for every single project.
What's a one true link?
Every project should have a home base. It might be the project plan, a dashboard, a key document, whatever it is. That single link should be pinned to the top of the project's channel.
So no one ever has to ask, hey, where's the latest version of the spec doc?
The answer is always, it's in the pin. You're building a system of predictable information retrieval.
So when you combine these habits, the decision logs, the public channels, the pinned links, you're living by a new rule.
The maxim is this: if it isn't searchable, it isn't shared. It might as well have never happened. Because as soon as that conversation scrolls off the screen, that knowledge is lost to the team forever.
Okay, so we've protected our files, we've protected our context. These are huge wins. But what's the point if all the time we save just gets eaten up by the constant ping of notifications and the nightmare of scheduling meetings?
You're right. We've just traded one kind of friction for another.
Which brings us to our third section, the friction of coordination and the constant battle for focus. All right, this next section is about that work about work you mentioned. And we have to start with Tope Otona and the story of Calendly.
Yes. So we're in Atlanta around 2013, and Awotona is working in enterprise sales for huge companies like EMC, a very high-stakes, high-pressure job.
And his job is to sell, but a huge chunk of his time isn't spent selling.
Not even close. A massive percentage of his very expensive time is spent on the logistics around selling. His entire life revolves around meetings, but the bottleneck wasn't the meetings themselves, it was just setting them up.
The email ping pong, I think everyone listening just shuddered.
It's the worst. Hey, can you do Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific? No, I'm booked then. How about Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern?
Oh, wait, let me check with my colleague in London. She needs to be there too.
Okay, my colleague can do that time, but now I can't. And on it goes. This isn't just a minor annoyance, it is a profound waste of time.
Let's actually try to quantify that for a second. A simple scheduling thread like that. What are we talking?
Conservatively, 4 to 7 emails. If each one of those emails requires just 2 minutes of your attention, you have to stop what you're doing, read it, open your calendar, think, type a reply. That's 15 minutes of your focus shattered.
15 minutes of lost deep work time just to book one 30-minute call.
Now multiply that by 10 or 20 meetings a week. You're losing an entire afternoon purely to administrative friction. It's a massive coordination tax.
And the sources say Awotona was just deeply offended by this inefficiency.
He was. He saw it as a systemic waste of human potential.
Yeah.
And he was so obsessed with solving it that he poured $200,000 of his own life savings into building the first version of Calendly.
Wow. Okay, so this was not a casual side project.
This was an all-in, high-stakes bet that he could eliminate this one recurring stupid problem. And his solution was so simple, but it was behaviorally revolutionary.
It just flipped the whole interaction on its head.
Completely. The burden of coordination shifted. It went from a negotiation, let's find a time that works for both of us, to a simple selection. Here are the times that already work for me. Pick one.
And that's the core principle right there, isn't it?
It is. Turn recurring coordination into a one-time configuration. The first time you set up Calendly, you spend 5, maybe 10 minutes defining your rules and your availability.
But then for the next 100 times you need to schedule a meeting, you just send the link.
And you get paid back and save time and mental energy every single time. The tool becomes your personal assistant, an efficiency contract that enforces your boundaries for you without you ever having to negotiate them again.
So you stop being a logistics coordinator and you can just focus on your actual job. Let's get tactical. How can listeners use a tool like this to create and enforce those boundaries?
Well, the first mistake people make is just having one generic link for everything. You need to create specific meeting types.
So not just book time with me.
No. You should have a 15-minute quick check-in link, a 30-minute deep dive link, maybe a 45-minute project review link. And each one has its own rules.
So the quick check-in might only be available in the afternoons, for example.
Exactly. And the deep dive might require at least 24 hours notice. You configure these rules once, and you prevent 100 future micro-negotiations.
You're using the software to manage your capacity.
And crucially, to manage your energy. This is why you must add buffers, as if your life depends on it.
The little 5 or 10-minute gaps between meetings.
Yes. If you don't build those in, your calendar becomes this brutal back-to-back marathon. One meeting runs over by 3 minutes, and your entire day is thrown into chaos. You show up to the next call late, flustered, and with no time to switch your mental context.
The buffer is breathing room.
It's essential. And the most powerful tactic of all, the one that improves the quality of the meeting, not just the scheduling.
Let me guess. It's about forcing the other person to think first.
You got it. Require one line of context. Make a mandatory field in the booking form that asks, what do you want to decide or leave this meeting with?
That one question changes everything.
It's a total game changer. It forces the person booking to have an agenda. It transforms the meeting request from a vague, can we chat about the project, to a specific, we need to decide yes or no on the new budget proposal.
So it's a decision meeting, not just an update meeting.
And that leads to the final maxim for this section. If it happens every week, stop negotiating it. Configure it. All your recurring meetings, your one-on-ones, your team check-ins, set them up once with a dedicated link and let the system handle it forever.
So we've solved the coordination tax. But there's another, even more insidious tax on our time. We've booked the meeting, but what about the time between meetings? The time when we're supposed to be doing the actual work?
The time that gets destroyed by the context switching tax.
And for that, we have to look at Jack Dorsey.
So now we're looking at maybe the most famously demanding executive schedule in modern history. It's 2011, and Jack Dorsey is the CEO of two massive public companies, Twitter and Square, simultaneously.
Which, on the face of it, just sounds completely impossible. How do you lead two global companies at the same time without just descending into total chaos?
Well, the sources say the problem for him wasn't a lack of hours in the day. He worked incredibly long hours. The real enemy was fragmentation, constant interruption.
The pinball machine effect.
Exactly. Every single part of the business, product, marketing, HR, finance felt like it had the right to interrupt him at any moment of the day. And when you live like that, you're always busy, always reacting, but you never get to do the deep, coherent thinking that a leader needs to do.
So you realize he had to build a system to protect his focus.
A very simple but incredibly powerful trick, themed days. He literally assigned a theme to each day of the work week.
Okay, what did that look like?
Monday was for management meetings and running the company. Tuesday was all about product. Wednesday was marketing, communications, and growth. Thursday was for developers and partnerships. And Friday was focused on company culture and recruiting.
The specific list isn't the magic, right? The magic is what the theme does.
The theme is a filter. It's a decision-making machine for his attention. When a new request comes in, an email, a meeting invite, the question isn't, can I squeeze this in right now? The question is this a Tuesday problem or a Thursday problem?
So the calendar goes from being just a record of appointments to being an operating system for his week. It sorts the incoming chaos into these neat, predictable buckets.
It's the difference between having one giant junk drawer where you throw everything versus having 5 clearly labeled bins.
Let's really define this hidden tax that theme days are built to fight. Why is context switching so damaging to our productivity?
The cognitive science on this is really clear. Every time you switch from one type of task to another, say, from reviewing a legal document to giving feedback on a creative design, your brain has to pay a switching cost.
You have to kind of reload the software for that task.
That's a perfect way to put it. You have to reload the context. You have to remember the goals for that specific domain. You have to pull up the right files. You have to get back into that specific mindset. And that reload process is not instant.
How long does it take?
Studies show it can take anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes just to get back into that state of deep focus or flow. So if you get pulled into 5 different modes of thinking throughout the day, you're not losing minutes. You are burning hours of your most productive time just on reorienting your brain.
And Dorsey was clear that this wasn't about eliminating interruptions. That was impossible.
He was running 2 companies. Of course interruptions would happen. But the theme was an anchor. It allowed him to refocus quickly. When the interruption was over, the theme of the day, okay, it's Tuesday, I'm in product mode, pulled him right back to where he needed to be. He paid that expensive setup cost of switching modes far fewer times each day.
I love the analogy of a chef's kitchen. You have a station for grilling, a station for sauces, a station for pastry. You don't just have all the tools thrown together on one big table.
It's a perfect analogy. The stations allow for focused, efficient work even when the kitchen is in a state of chaos. Themed days create those mental stations for your brain.
So the default habit of just responding to things as they come in,
Yeah.
it feels productive.
It creates the illusion of being responsive, but it silently murders your ability to do any work that requires more than 30 minutes of sustained thought.
So how do we install this operating system on our own calendars? Most of us aren't running 2 companies.
But we have the same human brain with the same limitations. First, you have to use your calendar as a constraint system. You literally block out the whole day on your calendar and label it Maker Day, Client Call Day.
You make the theme a visible all-day event.
It has to be visible to you and to your team. It moves the rule from being just an intention in your head to being a public policy. Second, you have to set simple boundaries based on those themes.
Like no internal meetings on maker days.
Exactly. Or maybe all my one-on-one meetings happen on Monday afternoon. You're training the people around you on how your operating system works, which reduces friction for everyone.
Right. So the technology, the shared calendar, becomes a tool that enforces your focus.
And it all leads to this guiding maxim. Don't manage hours, manage modes. Your attention is a far more precious and finite resource than your time. Stop letting it get shredded into tiny, useless pieces.
Okay. We've organized our files, we've made our conversations findable, we've protected our focus, we've eliminated a massive amount of day-to-day friction.
It was a huge step forward.
But there's one final crucial piece of the puzzle. How do we make sure that all this beautifully organized, focused activity is actually creating progress?
And that question takes us straight to Eric Ries and the Lean Startup. This is maybe one of the biggest philosophical shifts in how modern companies are built.
So we're back in the mid-2000s, and Ries is working at a startup called IMVU. It's a 3D avatar social network.
An ambitious idea. And they were facing a problem that every single business faces. They were very, very busy, lots of activity, lots of coding, but they had no real way of knowing if any of that activity was actually making the product better.
They couldn't tell if they were making progress.
They couldn't separate motion from progress. The traditional way of working, what Ries calls the big launch, is you work for 6 months in secret, you launch this huge new feature, and then you kind of hope for the best.
And then you have a bunch of meetings where everyone argues about whether it worked or not, based on their opinions.
Exactly. It's all politics and storytelling. Ries realized that these long feedback loops were the enemy of learning. So he and his team decided to do something that, at the time, was considered completely insane.
They decided to ship code to production constantly.
Not just daily. The sources say they were deploying to production nearly 50 times a day. They were aiming for a cycle where a developer could check in a piece of code, and 20 minutes later, it would be live for customers.
That speed is just mind-boggling, and it's only possible if you solve for one thing.
You have to eliminate learning friction. The hard part wasn't uploading the code fast. The hard part was having a system that could instantly tell you if that new code was helping or hurting, and could react automatically. The measurement system was the safety net.
And there's an amazing, vivid story from the source material that illustrates this perfectly. The ultimate engineering nightmare.
Yes, the invisible checkout button. It's the perfect analogy. So imagine a developer makes a tiny mistake, a typo in the code, and accidentally changes the color of the Buy Now button on your website to be white, and the background of the page is also white.
So the button is still there, but it's completely invisible. Your sales would instantly drop to zero.
A total catastrophe. In a normal company, how long might that bug go unnoticed?
Days. A week. Until a customer finally complains or someone looks at the weekly sales report and has a heart attack.
Right. And then it's a frantic scramble to figure out what went wrong. But at IMVU, because their core business metrics, like the checkout conversion rate, were wired directly into their deployment system, that system would notice the drop in sales within minutes.
It acted like a tripwire.
A fully automated tripwire. If that metric fell below a certain danger threshold, the system would automatically revert the change. It would just yank the bad code back out of production without a human even needing to intervene.
The implication of that is just. It's huge. If your system can't detect harm quickly, you are forced to be slow and cautious. You have to bundle changes into these huge, risky launches.
But if you can detect impact instantly and safely, you can move at incredible speed in tiny, safe, reversible steps.
And that is the core principle of this whole section. Technology is at its most powerful when it turns your work into a series of small, measurable experiments.
And this requires a direct assault on the default corporate habit of activity as proof.
The idea that just because we were busy, we must have accomplished something. We shipped the feature, so therefore we succeeded.
Right. Ritos argues that activity is just motion. It's not evidence. True progress, validated learning, requires a tight feedback loop. Its progress is change plus measurement plus learning.
If you make a change but you don't measure the result, then the person with the most seniority or the loudest voice wins the argument about what to do next.
And if you measure everything but never make any changes, you just have a bunch of dashboards that make you feel guilty but don't lead to any action. Need the whole loop. Build, measure, learn, over and over again as fast as possible.
Okay, let's go deeper on this. Why was Rees so insistent that small batches always beat big launches?
It's all about managing risk. If you launch a 6-month project and it completely fails, the cost is enormous, not just in money, but in morale. And it's impossible to diagnose why it failed. Was it the design, the marketing, the price? Who knows?
Too many variables.
But if you're making a tiny change every day, you're making 1,000 small cheap bets instead of one giant expensive one. A small failure is just a data point. It's learning.
Which brings us to that core quote from Rees, which is so important psychologically. If you cannot fail, you cannot learn.
Measurement makes failure safe. If the feedback loop is a quarterly business review, then failure is a terrifying career-limiting event. But if the feedback loop automatically reverts the change in 20 minutes, then failure is just a cheap, fast, informative signal.
And to get that signal, you have to be measuring the right things. You make this distinction between leading and lagging indicators.
A huge distinction. A lagging indicator is something like total revenue last quarter. It's important, but it tells you about the past. It's a result. You can't directly influence it today.
It's like looking in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. A leading indicator is a metric that is predictive of future success and that you can influence right now. For example, instead of just tracking total signups, you track the activation rate.
What's that?
The percentage of new users who complete a key action like uploading a photo or sending their first message within their first day.
Ah, I see. Because if you improve the onboarding process today, you will see the activation rate go up tomorrow.
It's a direct lever you can pull. It tells you if your changes are actually changing user behavior.
Maybe.
It provides an immediate feedback loop.
So let's turn this into actionable tactics for anyone, not just software developers. First, you say, we need to focus. Pick one outcome metric per project, not 10.
If you have 10 metrics, you have no metric. It just creates confusion and allows people to cherry-pick the data that supports their opinion. Pick one number that defines success for this specific piece of work. For a support team, it might be time to first response. For a sales team, proposal to close rate. It forces absolute clarity.
Okay, one metric. Next, you say we need to formalize our thinking with a learning log.
This can be super simple. A shared document. And before you start any new initiative, you write down 2 sentences. What we are changing and what we expect to see happen as a result. Your hypothesis.
So you're forced to state your assumption up front. You can't just say, I think we should change the button color because I like blue.
No. You have to say, we are changing the button color to blue because we believe it will increase the click-through rate by at least 5%. Now you have a clear, falsifiable hypothesis.
And finally, the safety net, taken right from the IMVU story. Define a revert rule in advance.
Before you launch anything, you agree as a team what harm looks like. If we launch this new email campaign and our unsubscribe rate goes up by more than 0.5%, we stop it immediately and revert to the old one.
You decide what failure looks like before you start, when you're all calm and rational.
When you combine that hypothesis in the learning log with the safety net of the revert rule, you have truly eliminated learning friction. You're living by the final maxim. If you can't tell what worked, you didn't finish the work.
Yeah.
Because the learning is the real deliverable.
Wow, what a journey. We went from the simple agonizing pain of a forgotten thumb drive on a bus all the way to the systemic velocity of a team safely deploying new code 50 times a day.
And we've seen how system design for our files, our conversations, our time, our learning, it's really just a relentless attack on all that invisible friction that bogs down our daily work.
The common thread through all of these stories, every single one, is this powerful idea of moving reliability out of your own head.
Out of fragile, fallible human memory and into a shared, configured, measurable system. It's the conscious decision to stop paying that daily friction tax on things that a computer can and should handle way better than a person.
It's funny, we think of these great tech innovations as creating all this new work for us to do, but really, their biggest contribution was about eliminating work.
Exactly. Eliminating the need to re-find a file, to relitigate a decision, to renegotiate a meeting time. And when you liberate people from that drudgery, you free up their attention for the things that only humans can do.
The deep creative work, the hard strategic decisions, the high-value communication.
Just think for a second about the hours you personally lose every week to that scatter storage, that email ping pong, that constant context switching. That lost time is the gap between just feeling busy and actually being productive.
So we want to leave you, our listener, with a challenge. You don't have to go build the next Dropbox tonight. Just do this one thing. This week, identify your single biggest point of recurring friction. That one thing that made you waste 15 minutes that you know software could have handled. Was it searching for a document? Was it that scheduling loop? Was it getting your deep work time shattered by interruptions? Just spot it.
And as you think about that, here's the provocative thought we want to leave you with. If your team's current way of working is basically designed to tolerate failure to tolerate lost files, missed context, and slow feedback, what is one specific process, if you made it automated or even just made it public and searchable, that would instantly make your entire team faster and more effective without anyone having to work a single minute past 5 p.m.?
Find your never again moment. That's what Drew Houston had on that bus. He said, my God, I never want to have this problem again. Find your problem and build the small, simple system to make it disappear forever.
That's the real work.